There's a story of a farmer whose horse ran away, and his neighbor came over and said, "That's terrible." And the farmer said, "Well, you never know." The very next day, his horse who ran away came back, but he came back with two wild stallions. And the neighbor came over and said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And the farmer said, "Oh, well, you never know." So the farmer's son trained, or was busy training, one of the wild horses and got thrown from the horse and ended up breaking his leg. And the neighbor came over and said, "That's terrible." And the farmer said, "Well, you never know." And then the army came into town, conscripting all the young, able bodied men to fight in the war. And they didn't take the farmer's son because, he had a broken leg. And the neighbor came over and said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And you can guess what the farmer said. But we often forget that there are blessings, there's gifts, there are opportunities in the challenges that present us. And when we are presented with what appears to be bad news, we don't see that as actually the perfect curriculum we need in order to wake up. We don't see that as grace. And yet if we look back at our lives, we look back at the things that we have suffered, we can often see that they were the perfect thing that we needed to become who we are. They forced us to see things from new perspectives. They forced us to open our hearts to people that we wouldn't open our hearts to. They caused us to move our lives in particular directions. And so, in a way, the story of the farmer and his neighbor and the horse and his son is really just a story of how each of us can use catastrophe, like even the one that we are currently in, as an opportunity. And we can, instead of losing the balance of our mind, we can actually use this opportunity to maintain the balance of our mind and to see from that perspective the gifts that are open to us. And that essentially requires that we be introspective, that we do our work, that we don't let our fear and its natural tendency to cause us to contract or constrict ourselves. We have to work with that, because in a constricted place, we don't actually see the opportunities. So that's actually what spiritual practice is. It is a set of tools that allows us to work with the fear or the pain that starts to come up so that we can start to open and release it. And it's only from this released or open or expansive state that we actually see the opportunities available to us, that we can actually start to work with what comes up. So that's actually the benefit, a very powerful benefit of spiritual practice, specifically in times of crisis, is that we have tools available to us that enable us to rise to the occasion. And the only way we can rise to the occasion is if we're present to it, if we can actually see what it's trying to show us or what it's trying to demonstrate.